Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather, here with my co host Preston Chandler. Together, we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation coaching and strategy. Today's guest brings together a deep experience in product strategy, digital transformation, and emerging tech, all grounded in the rare ability to make innovation practical and human. We're thrilled to welcome Amir Elion, founder and CEO of Think Big Leaders. Amir previously led Amazon Web Services digital innovation program in the Nordics to help organizations reimagine what's possible using cloud, AI, and customer driven innovation. With over 25 years of experience spanning startups, corporates, and tech giants, Amir has developed frameworks that help leaders cut through the AI noise, unlock meaningful value, and build future ready organizations. He's also a keynote speaker, an educator, a product leader, and interestingly, a trained shiatsu therapist, giving him a uniquely grounded perspective on human potential and performance. Amir, I don't want to say that I'm going to sign up for a therapy lesson right after this, but I'm still really curious. Welcome to the show. We're excited to have a conversation.
Thanks, JL. Thanks, Preston, for having me. I'm thrilled towards this conversation.
And we're glad to have
Awesome.
you.
So I think in the intro, we talked a little bit about some of the frameworks you had that would help amplify innovation, specifically with AI, which you can't get away from the AI conversation these days. So I'm curious, can you walk us through the key principles behind your frameworks?
Yeah. So, when I've done innovation, as you said, for 25 years, and I've picked quite a lot of methodologies along the way, and I think, a strong way of leading teams through this process. And I very much believe in what people sometimes see as a paradox, like a systematic innovation. So we need to help people walk through the process in order to unleash that creativity. So I've picked those methodologies. I use them a lot when I facilitate workshops and then processes with organizations. And when ChatGPT came out almost, I think, 3 years ago, I was curious, can I teach ChatGPT my methods so I can have like an innovation co-pilot, right? I mean, it's a lot of work to walk people through these methods. Why don't I
Yeah.
use this sidekick to help me? So and then of course 3 years ago it wasn't what we have today with those tools. Had to do a lot of experimenting, copying, pasting, but I already saw the potential of, at least with some of the methodologies, it was able to help me scale, brainstorm, dive deeper into some of the things. And basically I built like my own system of starting with identifying the challenge, like jobs to be done methodology, and then mapping the closed world of the problem, and diving deep into that. So that's kind of scoping the problem, then maybe doing customer empathy to prepare people for the ideation, then, different ideation methodologies that I use, particularly systematic inventive thinking or Scamper or other methodologies, and all the way down to kind of elaborating on ideas, prioritizing, and even taking them to market with some creative advertising and things like that. So basically I had like my own, at the time, again, as I said, it's not like today. I had to have like a separate chat and a specific prompt to start each of these methods. Now it's easier. You can even tie those together. You can build skills with tools like Claude. You can
Yeah.
create custom chatbots and call them from within. And now I even, vibe code, and maybe we'll get to that, and create my own tools that support the innovation process that I believe in.
I guess what I like hearing from you is that there's still very much a human centric approach to innovation. Even if you're having AI help and support you in a lot of different ways, you're still asking. You talked about empathy mapping, and you talked about the customer journey and the jobs to be done. Those are all human things. I think it's maybe easy for some of us today to start thinking that the AI will do it all for us. And it can certainly help, but you just pointed out a number of things that we need humans for.
Yeah, and I have a very opinionated way on how we should use AI for innovation or in general. And I believe that way combines, as you said, like a structured approach with the domain experts. Like in our case, it would be innovation experts. In other cases, if it's a sales expert or I don't know, a technical expert that knows the ideal process, that knows the best practices, or at least that are relevant to the context that they're trying to solve, and dictates, this is the process I want to follow. It's like teaching, a very talented employee, in this case an AI employee, this is our methodology. These are the best. We really believe in it, and it leads to the results that we want to get. But you need to teach it, right? You need to take it through those steps. So that's one thing where the human comes in, and definitely along the way there are choices to be made. So say we do ideation, and there's 50 ideas, who's to say what's the best for the context or the problem that we're trying to solve? It's a lot about judgment and the context and the values that you care about. So the AI can't help with that. You might have a conversation with it. You might ask it to challenge you even for, about your values and your choices and your priorities. But in the end, somebody has to make a judgment call. At least for now, I trust the humans to make that best judgment call.
Well, and it's interesting to me. I think there is a lot of power in using AI in innovation. At Centered, we run a lot of innovation workshops like design sprints, things like that. I'm curious, I can see easily how we can use AI beforehand to help prepare. We can use AI afterwards to help synthesize and boil things down. I think where a lot of people struggle, myself included, is how do you integrate AI real time into the workshop without spoiling the vibe, for lack of a better term, without it taking over or over relying on it or any number of those things. What would be your recommendation be for bringing AI into an innovation workshop?
Yeah, so what I do is, this is actually something that I do in the workshops. I prepare in advance these kind of tools, and when we come to the right point, so for example, if we need to prioritize ideas, we need to dive deeper, we need to challenge. So you might know the Edward de Bono's six hats method, right? Which is a great method to diving deeper into idea, looking at it from different perspectives, gathering the data, mapping out the pros and cons, and then creative thinking. So I have a pre-made AI tool that you can say, hey, this is the idea. Here's the high level thinking, the first draft of what we're thinking of doing in the solution. Can you map out? And this is what I would do. It would take me like maybe an hour or two when I did this in person with the team. Let's go through all those hats and understand the complexity of this idea more. Now, it's still great to do it with people because they need to get through this mindset. But if we don't have time, or if we want to have more perspectives than the humans, let's have AI in parallel, or instead of the time that we don't have, map this out for us, and let's have a discussion on that deeper analysis. This is just one example for
Yeah.
idea elaboration, but you can do similar things for, like I mentioned in the end, like creative advertising, right? We have an
Right.
idea, we've already have the solution. We want to just think through, how do we message this? How do we highlight the value, and how do we do it in a way that grabs people's attention in today's very message bombarded world? And then again, feeding it with the powerful templates from creative advertising techniques or whatnot, then it can be an expert helper in certain innovation sections of the process.
I
I like
like
that.
something you hit on there. I think it is great when you have a time crunch, it can speed you up. But you mentioned a trade-off that I think is really interesting, which is people need to go through some of these exercises to wrap their head around the problem, to fully immerse themselves so they can be the most productive version of themselves as the solution moves forward. Because as of yet, AI can't do everything. And God, I hope it never can, because that's scary to think about. But I do think that's something that's important for everyone to remember is even though AI can potentially move you forward faster, there is value in the humans taking some of these things on regardless.
Yeah, yeah, and going through the motions and understanding the complexities and not just reading them, because then you don't understand them as much until you struggle with them yourselves.
Right. And there's probably a life lesson somewhere in there on that as well.
My kids, I have 2 kids right now that are learning addition, subtraction, multiplication with fractions. We have computers that will do that for us, but we're still teaching them the basics. And maybe that's a good insight to have, is that we can't allow the machine learning, the AI learning, to rob us of any of the human learning that we need to have.
Yeah.
Not to say that there can't be any of the AI
Right.
stuff, but there's a careful balance.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say is these tools have some great capabilities, but they also have limitations, and they have things that
Right.
they're not good at. So the other thing I also try to do is teach people, where are the limitations, in which
Right.
cases should you use, and how can you maximize the value when you're using these tools, or what you should be watching out for and not use them for, or double check when they come up with answers.
Right. Well, and I think, the double checking is also a great, like, not only do you double check, but sometimes you do the work first and then you use
Yeah,
AI to see, like, did I forget anything? Were there any gaps in
yeah.
my thinking? Should I look at it? And it's kind of that idea of an extra perspective, an outside perspective can be really valuable.
Mhm.
Sometimes AI can fill that role as well.
Absolutely.
So now to kind of move on from AI, because I think there's a limit to how much we can talk about AI in one episode. I know you've also taught Amazon's working backwards method, which I'll be honest, I haven't heard of this. So I'm interested, one, what is it? And two, what can leaders learn from it about prioritizing the right innovation? So like that making sure that that innovation is very directed and purposeful.
Yeah. So I've been in Amazon 5 years, and then 2 years on, I moved to this role of leading the innovation program. Since I joined Amazon, I was very curious because I came with an innovation background and I did innovation workshops in the past. I was very curious about how does Amazon do innovation, and this is the methodology. So the way that innovation works at Amazon, there is no R&D, there is no one innovation team. Basically, everybody, I don't know, 1.5 million people working at Amazon are supposed to innovate. So it's very distributed, but it's also very structured in a way. So it's very built in a certain way that serves Amazon's mission, which is to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. So how do you do that? There's a method that people are supposed to follow, and that is the working backwards method. It's before you do anything, you have to go through this methodology, and then you can only ask for resources and whatnot. And it works across all the businesses for Amazon. A lot of the innovations that you see come out of the Amazon businesses, products, programs have risen up from this methodology. Now, it starts by asking yourselves seemingly simple questions, but the answers are not simple. The first question is, who is the customer? And whenever I do this now and I bring it to a team and I pose this question, I'm always surprised. It could be the greatest team in the world and the greatest companies that have great success with great products. They are not aligned on the answer. Or they tell me everybody who's using our products. That's like saying nothing. Right. You have to be very specific and very intentional on who are you choosing to delight this time. And so that's the first question. Who's the customer? What's the customer problem? Because that customer, that persona could have 10, 50, 100 different problems that you could solve. But what is the one that you want to focus on now? The third question is, what is within that problem space, what is the most important benefit for that customer? So is it simplicity, cost, peace of mind, whatever, right? Accessibility to services. And there's two more questions, like how do you know what the customer's needs or wants? So that's kind of a data-driven question. And the fifth one is only then do you ask, okay, how does the customer experience look like if we solve this? So, and you could spend quite a number of days, weeks, or even months just trying to figure out the answers to those questions and getting clarity. So you start with those questions. You don't move forward until you think you have some good answers or some assumptions about what the answers are. The next thing you do is you write an imaginary press release from the future. So you jump 6-8 months into the future when we believe we've solved this problem, and you write a one-pager basically answering those 5 questions. So if I were to give you this one page, it should be very clear to you without any jargon, without any marketing fluff. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just describing the future. But if you read it, it should be very clear about who's the customer, what's the problem, how are we solving it, how are they delighted, right? Yep. So that's a one-pager. It's very hard to write. It has a very specific structure of how to kind of articulate that vision. And then you can add up to 5 pages of FAQs to it. You first start with the customer FAQ. So what would customers ask? Like, how do I get support? How is this different from something else? What are you doing with my data? Depending on of course, the space and the solution. And then only after that do you have stakeholder questions, internal stakeholders, like business stakeholders. Why are we doing this? What is the monetization strategy? How will we deal with scale and, the operations? And basically what you do in this document, you spell out a lot of your assumptions, a lot of your ambitions, and you also kind of start to plan how will you discover the things that you don't know. And what you do once you've written this document, and it can take quite a while, but once you're ready, you start sharing it with relevant people and you start to get feedback. And the feedback is not supposed to kill your idea or to, just give you compliments. It's supposed to try and make you get better so that you are better prepared for when you actually go and build and start to do the experiments. So that's on a really, in short, the Amazon's approach. But if I kind of bring it down to the essence is start with the customer, work backwards, hence the name, and have alignment and clarity on what you're trying to solve, why, and how. And then work from there on, okay, what are the experiments? Do we need to validate this or that? And how do we do that? What kind of resources do we need to do that? What are the checkpoints? Then there's like experimentation, more agile development approach. That's kind of the next step.
And I'm willing to bet a lot of the ideas that shouldn't move forward are almost like in a Darwinian way, weeded out. People kind of realize before they even bring them to the attention of their management, like, ooh, I don't quite have the data for this, or the customers aren't quite our customers. Like, so there's some self-editing that kind of goes on as part of this.
Yeah, so several things can happen. So first of all, there is no central control. Nobody knows how many PRFAQs are flying around in the organization at any given time. It's a very distributed model. But what can happen is, yes, first of all, the team gets more clarity. They might realize, hey, we're not this is not a good idea, we should explore something else. But other things might happen as well, because if we as stakeholders are seeing, I don't know, 20 of these this month, and we start to connect the dots and say, hey, you should speak to that team. They have a similar, maybe you should do something together and, solve a bigger problem. Or they might push you to say, hey, this is, why are you thinking so small? Go and solve this bigger thing. Or they might input some information. I've done this before. I have this data. Maybe you can use this data and connect it. So many things can happen. And, usually these documents would have iterations. You would have like 10, 15, like AWS, for example. I think there was like 30 odd versions of it before they actually launched, started working on the first solutions. So that process does teach you a lot on what should be done, what shouldn't be done, how it should be done, and your entire. But it also, so for me today, it's part of my, because I've done it so many times, dozens, maybe hundreds of times, this is the way I already think now.
Right.
So if I have an idea, or if somebody comes to me with an idea, I kind of already write the PRFAQ in my head, more or less.
Right.
Because I know the questions that I need to ask, and I'm striving towards that clarity. So it's kind of also like a very good habit to have.
So I know we're running low on time. So I want to get one more question in, and hopefully we can keep this short and impactful. But I'm curious, for the people who are listening, what's something they could do differently tomorrow? One thing that would help them be more ready for innovation, not more innovative, but more ready to actually change and push that innovation forward.
Yeah. So I would go back to the working backwards questions, right? And by the way, it doesn't have to be like a product or solution that you put up in front of customers. Maybe it's something internal that you do, a process, a program that you're thinking, and then of course the customer. If you're a public service company or like a nonprofit, and maybe you don't use the word customer, but anyway, the people that you're trying to help. And by the way, if you're like B2B, you can't say these kind of companies. You have to think which persona within that company is the one that you're
Right.
helping. So it's the logistics manager, the finance leader, whatever. So pick that. Just answer those two questions. Who's the customer and what's the problem? And then, first of all, ask yourself, then kind of maybe gather the smaller team and try to expand your vision of and get clarity and write it down. Don't rely on, yeah, we agreed on it, we have it on a board. Write it down, spend some time on every word that has meaning, right? And don't overwrite it. Just write it down, very clear, and give it to somebody else that wasn't part of the process and ask them if the answers are clear.
I can't remember who the quote is from, but it was something along the lines of, I'm sorry this is so long, I didn't have time to make it short. It's hard, right, to make it short like that. But Amir,
Yeah.
this has been fantastic. I think like so many of our conversations, we could have gone another hour or so and not run out of things to talk about. But if someone is looking for help with innovation and they don't want to work with Centered first, which, totally fine, how would they get into contact with you?
Or we could work something together as well.
There we go.
So
I
yeah,
love it.
so first of all, LinkedIn, I do share quite a lot about innovation, about AI, about business. So Amir Elion on LinkedIn. You could go to my website, with my company website, which is thinkbigleaders.com. And I recently also started a newsletter on Substack. So if you look for Amir Elion on Substack, I think now I'm up to the 4th issue. And there I kind of connect AI, business, innovation, leadership principles from Amazon. So you're welcome to check that out as well and subscribe. It's free. So yeah.
Great. I love it. Well, Amir, thank you so much. For everyone else that's made it all the way to the end with us, as always, while you're down there leaving that 5-star review, we'd love to hear from you in the comments as well. Where do you stumble with innovation? How do you use AI in innovation? I think the knowledge isn't all here. We'd love to hear from you as well. And then if you know anyone that's struggling with either integrating AI into their innovation or who could benefit from the backwards thinking, that's the wrong way to say it, isn't it?
Working backwards.
The working backwards methodology from Amazon. Share the episode with them. We love to spread the knowledge and introduce Amir to our audience and beyond. So Amir, thank you again. This has been a fantastic conversation. For everyone else, thank you as well. And we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.